Just when you think you've seen large-scale destruction, there's always a giant kaiju coming in from somewhere and telling us, hold my beer, bro. Yeah, these massive beasts can drop their opponents like Bruce Lee, but are like 30 times the size. I know you like this genre too, so here are the top 30 giant monster flexes in the movies. Yep, we're kicking off with 2 Titan takedowns, affected by yours truly, God-freaking-Zilla. I know it's cheating to include both Scylla and Tiamat in the same entry, but there are lots of other scenes that deserve their time to shine, so I figured I might as well show Godzilla smashing 2 super strong Titans with minimum effect. He starts off with Scylla, who isn't that tough of an opponent to him, although the way he's destroyed does get super messy. I do have my issues with Tiamat though, because that Titan's a lot stronger than what was actually shown. Either way, it was still cool to have Godzilla beat his opponents with such flair, because it only solidified how overpowered he really is. Gotta say though, the way he kicked Tiamat out of her own home was almost as if she forgot to pay him rent or something. Now, here's a scene that'll make you run for dear life. Bong Joon-ho may have made a name for himself through Parasite, but he was already a renowned director in South Korea by that time, with films like Memories of Murder and The Host amongst his credits. Speaking of The Host, the titular monster sure wreaked havoc in its first fully blown appearance in the movie. Park Gang-do is the first one to notice the monster, and it's all chaos after that, as the beast completely controls the scene exactly as it wants to. You know, it's kind of interesting how, unlike a lot of other monsters in movies, rather than killing every person it comes into contact with, this creature is just kind of running around like a lion in a wildebeest herd and only attacks when it finds a suitable snack. This decision makes it feel less like a monster and more like an actual animal, which I felt was a neat trick by the director. I imagine there aren't many other colossal ways of waking up, but you don't even need more options when the troll gets everyone panicking simply by ending its nap. The creature's design in itself is pretty cool because he's basically like a little hill or mountain all by himself. However, the moment his eyes open up, you know the movie's main arc has begun. Bro isn't even doing much here, apart from getting up and roaring, but that's more than enough to put everyone on high alert. The sheer size of the monster is presented quite nicely too, so that we know this isn't just some run-of-the-mill creature we're dealing with. Yeah, if someone's so big that you can hear his freaking eyelid blink, then you know you're in trouble.
He's pretty big.
At number 27, I'd like to introduce you to the big daddy of kaijus from the Pacific Rim universe. Yeah, this movie may not be anywhere close to the OG, but the Mega Kaiju did have his time to shine when he took down multiple Jaegers as if he's a little kid who's breaking all of his action figures. These giant robots are supposed to be humanity's best defense against monsters, and they all got destroyed with utmost disrespect. Yes, I'll admit that teenagers aren't your best hope to control $100 billion robots, but I guess the studio really wanted to kill off the franchise more passionately than the Mega Kaiju killed off those Jaegers. Guillermo del Toro's absence was quite evident in this flick, so I hope he gives us something good in the new Frankenstein movie he's doing with Netflix.
Nobody move a muscle.
Yes, I'm well aware of this highly controversial flex, but there's no way a Spinosaurus should be able to beat T-Rex based on actual science. However, this particular T-Rex was supposed to be a teenager, not Rexy, so I guess it's okay. Also, how can you not call it a flex when a new villain takes down the species that's supposed to have been the big bad dino from the previous 2 movies? The fight lasts all of 30 seconds, and the T-Rex never really stood a chance by the end of it. Having said that, I'll always remain Team Rexy.
George, you and I cool? Come on.
I think it goes without saying that flipping off the Rock is a mega flex. George knows it too, which is why him giving Dwayne Johnson the figure is one of the most hilarious yet savage moments from 2018's Rampage. Sure, there are a lot of fights and stuff too, but a flex doesn't always need to be a physical display of dominance. What's even better is how seriously Davis takes this interaction till he gets flipped. It was a great sequence in the movie, and I'm sure even The Rock would have enjoyed seeing the final product come out so well. See, why are we so obsessed with having 100 men fight a gorilla when the gorilla can actually be a bro to men everywhere? It shouldn't be rocket science to state that one Megalodon is enough for a whole beach of people. There are some issues with the direction and cinematography in terms of logic, because how the heck do you not notice the movements of the largest shark to have ever existed? Anyway, the attack on the beach was a great way to show the large-scale destruction a Meg could do even in the water. My favourite part was that one dude in the ball who thought he'd be safe because he was above the water, only for the Meg to show up and burst his bubble. Get it? Actually, I shouldn't be joking about such stuff, but I couldn't help it, okay? Who would have thought a giant worm could pull off a crazy Uno reverse? 1990's Tremors was an unexpected hit that spawned a whole franchise that ran nearly as long as The Fast and the Furious, although in the form of TV movies. That kind of success was unprecedented, but I'd rather focus on the most popular movie from the brand, which incidentally is the only one which had a theatrical release. Here we see the Graboid monster tricking Val, Earl and the others by making them believe it's fallen for their dynamic trap, only to spit out the bomb right back at his targets. It's a nice twist that shows the monster's intelligence and also turns the tables as the humans are made to think quick for their survival.
Back on the boat! Now! Go! Christ!
When dealing with a snake as deadly as the Anaconda, there ain't no waterfall high enough to escape from its grasp. Warren had to find that out the hard way when he tried to slip a fast one by jumping off the waterfall, only to be caught with excellent precision and then get devoured right after. Look, there's a lot happening in this scene anyway, so the grab from the tree felt even more impactful. Warren knew that he was cooked the moment he got caught, and unfortunately, the only time he had to reflect on it was probably inside the Anaconda's tummy. Although, I don't think he got completely eaten due to the tree falling afterwards. Even so, it was great reflexive hunting from the giant snake. At 21, we have an odd display of dominance as the last surviving engineer is beaten via pregnancy. Yeah, Shaw's alien offspring grows to gigantic proportions and gets unleashed on the engineer as its mommy has no other option left. What follows is a short encounter as the alien baby shoves its own baby into the engineer, subduing him and pretty much terminating him in the process as well. It's a short and definitely not sweet moment, and I'd love to include some xenomorphs too, but a gigantic alien baby fits the theme of today's video much better than them. It sure hits different when you see an alpha beating another alpha. Yes, this is the battle between Valkar's Bewilderbeast and Drago's Bewilderbeast. It's a pretty epic fight of massive proportions, but unfortunately, the good guys face a major setback when Drago's Bewilderbeast takes down Valkar's guy without mercy. It is a shocking moment for sure, but it also shows the dominant nature of the evil Bewilderbeast, which is clearly meant for offense as opposed to his opponent who's more suited to defense. Yeah, I was really sad to see this, but at the same time, it is a flex for the bad guys to win every now and then in a kids' movie.
Oh, shit!
Yep, 2018 saw a lot of different movies, but for now, flying wolves and dino crocs are the order of the day. We saw how sassy George could be in the earlier entry, but spare a moment for Ralph, who'd only just begun flexing his flying skills when Lizzie decides to show she's the real boss here. These two were actually on the same side not too long ago, but I guess you can't really put your point across when the giant crocodile gobbles up your head like a Malteser. Yeah, that crocodile had the appetite of a freaking Snorlax and was almost invincible too. Imagine the headline: Giant lizard savagely assassinates loving couple on some biased newspaper. Yeah, even something as extreme as that doesn't do justice to the thrashing Godzilla gives out to the Muto lovers. This is his first proper battle in the Monsterverse, and he doesn't disappoint at all, despite some annoyance from that extremely clingy male Muto. We get it, bro. You love your girl, but you also gotta let her fight her own battles, you know. Godzilla wasn't having any of it though, which is why it took only one tail whip to violate that clingy husband. The decimation of the female Muto via atomic breath was pretty much a bonus for us, and it paved the way for the birth of a new franchise. Apart from humans, it seems as if the Meg also likes a bit of calamari. In this sequence, we see Suyin getting attacked by a giant squid, but to the Meg, this is just a warm-up snack for dinner. The squid is ripped to pieces in mere seconds without anyone even realizing what's going on. Of course, the sudden reveal of the Megalodon swimming with a piece of the squid in its mouth tells us all we need to know about how scary this monster is supposed to be. You want to know something scary? The giant squid actually does exist in real life, and if you run into one, you won't have a Meg to come and save you then.
Capsule breach in 5 seconds.
Gorilla is never fazed by a bat, and it also applies to King Kong when it comes to warbats. I was actually conflicted on whether I should include this scene or the fight against the giant skullcrawler, but here it's 2v1, so I decided to give in to the numbers. The style with which Kong takes down the first warbat was pretty cool, but the violence he showcased with the second one was a bit too deadly to just cheer on. Bro even marked victory by eating his opponent's head. Now that's a badass way to celebrate. What better way to boss around the Titans than to have them bow down to their king without saying a single word? After Godzilla blasts Ghidorah into oblivion, he's then confronted by all kinds of Titans like Rodan, Behemoth and more. What looks like a tricky situation for Godzilla quickly turns into a victory round, so all of them bow down to him to prove that he truly is their supreme leader. This is such a big flex that even Godzilla would have blushed a little in his head. Of course he has to maintain that Giga Chad energy, so he roars into the sky instead to tell us all he's the boss. You know, it was quite funny to see that Muto there too. Godzilla surely must have looked at him like, bow down to me bro, unless you want to meet your relatives from the 2014 film. At number 14, we've got a new breed of kaijus who are totally worthy of our respect. Odachi and Leatherback showed everyone in the audience that Jaegers weren't always guaranteed to win against them. This fight started off as a 2v1 and then became a 3v2, but none of that mattered because these Category 4 kaijus weren't here to play. I mean, they took down both Crimson Typhoon and Cherno Alpha as if they were fighting minions. They would have taken out Striker Eureka as well, had it not been for Gypsy Danger coming in at the last minute to save the day. My focus though still remains primarily on Odachi, who was actually holding up quite well on her own when she was taking on 2 Jaegers at the same time. Sure, Leatherback's sudden arrival and electromagnetic pulse definitely gave her the advantage again, but I don't think she really needed it. Honestly, she's the best kaiju out of the entire Pacific Rim franchise despite not even being Category 5. You know you're cooked when freaking grizzly bears are like little snacks to this crocodile. 1999's Lake Placid may have had some really subpar sequels, kind of like Anaconda 2, but the OGs never disappoint, as is seen here in this total knockout of a scene. Hector finds himself in a bit of a predicament when he gets attacked by a grizzly bear, which all we know is bad news for any human being. However, Bro gets saved by an unlikely hero who's supposed to be the main villain of the movie. There's no official name for the giant saltwater crocodile of Lake Placid, so I'll just call him Croc Bro for now. Seeing Croc Bro devour the bear with such ease was the closest this film came to giving us a proper jump scare, and hearing the animal cry for help actually made me feel bad for the little dude. Yeah, imagine that. Croc Bro is making me call a grizzly bear little dude. That's exactly how dominant he was in this scene. Well, this bad boy proves to us that a starfish should never ever be underestimated. Starro's introduction had everyone running for cover, but when you're dealing with a creature who has hive mind capabilities, the best you can do is pray to God. The Suicide Squad was a much better version of the 2016 failure, and a lot of that has to do with James Gunn's ability to surprise an audience even when they think there's nothing else that can shock them. Starro's appearance was definitely a WTF moment for most of the general fans, and what took him to the next level was his ability to control endless targets with the same hive mind. It's a crazy moment that reminds us of Unity from Rick and Morty, with the main difference being it's a giant starfish instead of an attractive alien. It's also funny to see those normal-sized starfish spinning out of Starro's armpits like a flock of birds. Maybe he needs a roll-on deodorant to sort that issue out. Number 11 on this list is an instance of true teamwork at its finest. After a weekend, Godzilla gets his butt handed to him by the Terminator version of King Ghidorah. Kong decides to steal the limelight with a display that entertained everyone. Bro not only saved the King of the Monsters from total humiliation, he also managed to violate his enemy with utmost savagery. Yes, he did need the axe as well as the atomic recharge from Godzilla, but a true boss always finishes what he started. The team-up was obviously what the fans loved the most, but this entry is here because of how Kong smashes MechaGodzilla to bits and then celebrates with a victory roar while showing us all the head of his opponent. There's a certain sense of rawness in this moment, and it stays with you much after the movie ends. Yeah, forget 100 men, this gorilla took down a freaking cyber Godzilla. Kicking off my top 10 is a sequence that takes flexing to a whole new level. Peter Jackson had already solidified himself as a legend with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but in King Kong, He also reached out to a completely new segment of fans and showed them that he could also do giant monster movies with ease. The battle between King Kong and not one, but 3 V-Rexes was cinematic brilliance, especially back in 2005 when you didn't have any of the Transformers or MCU flicks dominating the CGI scene. If 1v3 wasn't enough of a disadvantage to Kong, he also had to make sure he kept Andaro safe during the extended battle. Bro still emerged victorious, so I don't really think I need to say much else about him. Oh yeah, there's also the fact that there are 2 clips of the same fight on YouTube, each with over 200 million views. Bro's a bigger movie star than any of the other cast members.
Where's the goat?
This is the most epic dinosaur scene of all time, and it would have easily been number 1, but this is a Flex's video, so I have to be fair to the others. The Tyrannosaurus Rex was known as the apex predator of its time, with historical accuracy suggesting it could even take down mega dinos like the Spinosaurus and the Gigantosaurus. Yeah, the movies may have done it dirty, like the teenage Rex from the Spino entry, but Rexy gets her moment to shine in her first ever scene, and it made such an impact that the world would never be the same again. It's our first time seeing a realistic T-Rex with animatronics, and the way Spielberg directs the daylights out of this scene alone should have earned him an Oscar. Although, I'm sure he'll still be happy with all the accolades from Schindler's List, yeah? Anyway, Rexy shows the humans that they're nothing more than little ants to her, because she's able to wreak so much havoc without even trying. I mean, she spends half the scene figuring out how to function without captivity, and even then, she destroys a vehicle, injures Ian Malcolm, sends the rest of the cast into a forest, and also manages to pick up a nice little snack in the process. Yeah, the MechaGodzilla final battle was cool and all, but it couldn't top Godzilla cementing his dominance over Kong in neon style. The Battle of Hong Kong was a visual spectacle, and it gave the Monsterverse the kind of impetus it needed to bounce back into the global box office. We all wanted to see Godzilla taking on King Kong, and there was a small battle before this, but I guess you could call this one the deciding encounter. Yeah, they did have to boost up Kong with plot armor to make him win one round for a few minutes, but make no mistake here, there's no way he's trumping the King of Monsters. Godzilla made sure of that when he decided to stop wasting his atomic breath and went Croc style to savagely violate his opponent. You know, for a battle that was so hyped up in the marketing for the film, the actual outcome was heavily one-sided after Godzilla actually decided to get serious. Poor Kong really had no chance, even with that battle axe now, did he? In at number 7, we have a scene of historical significance. Actually, that's not true because my research tells me that the T-Rex went extinct roughly over 40 million years ago, before the Megalodon was even a thing. Not that I'd expect any historical accuracy from a movie like Meg 2, but you have to admit that the opening sequence where a Megalodon devours a freaking T-Rex, it was just super epic to watch, wasn't it? Sure, it may not have been possible in real life to get these two together, but even so, simply witnessing an encounter like this on the big screen was definitely fan service. I like how they showed the progression of predators with one beast larger than the other showing up, and you'd normally imagine that it would end with the T-Rex. However, the Meg had bigger fish to fry, or in this case, bigger prey to bite. Munching down on the greatest land predator as if it's eating some KFC was a super flex, and it set a strong tone for the rest of the film, although I can't say there was much else to write home about, apart from the Kraken fight, of course. You've really got to be special if you happen to be monsters that can add aura to other characters. That's exactly what happens in the grand final battle of Dune 2, which involves some very impressive sandworms. Paul changed everyone's perception in this scene because it was so out of left field that you'd probably think you're experiencing some kind of fever dream. The only difference though is that it's very, very real. Up to that point, the rest of the galaxy had known of the sandworms only as a category of monsters that you run from whenever they show up, because there's usually nothing else you can do now, is there? But then you see them not only charging at you, but being controlled by your opposition, which is pretty much all you need as proof to submit to them. You want to know another reason why this deserves a spot at number 6? Well, they're made to look woefully outmatched and they get absolutely destroyed.
For my Duke and my friends.
Would it even be a list of giant monster flexes if I didn't include the Great Dino Royal Rumble? Yeah, I'm expecting a lot from Jurassic World Rebirth, but one of the main reasons this franchise is even a thing now is because of how epic the final battle was in the first Jurassic World film. I mean, the official clip from YouTube alone has over 360 million views at the time of making this video. The Indominus Rex was the one doing the flexing at first by taking down everyone's favourite T-Rex in a rather dominating fashion. Of course, that was trumped by Blue showing up and teaming up with Rexy to turn the tables like a giant Uno reverse. However, the ultimate flex from this sequence, believe it or not, doesn't come from any of these dinosaurs. As a matter of fact, it's not even a dinosaur who steals the show here. It's the Mosasaurus, which was actually a giant marine reptile. Yeah, that sister just randomly pops out the water and drags what looks like the most powerful dinosaur of all time for a quick meal. Just look at the T-Rex and the Velociraptor here. Even when they're looking at sis like, how the heck did this take down an Indominus with just one bite? This may not have been a large-scale production, but even with a modest budget, Godzilla Minus One gave a blast that literally and figuratively blows everyone away. Yes, it's that atomic breath scene, and I don't even need to justify why it comes in at number 3. It's a sequence that definitely had a lot of effort put into it, as well as a decent chunk of the budget, because if I'm being honest here, that atomic blast looked better than a few from the Monsterverse, and these movies cost hundreds of millions of dollars. I love how the spines slam back in, just like the control rods that are used in nuclear power plants. I guess it's also because they showed this as an actual nuclear explosion rather than a simple laser cutting through stuff. All in all, it was such a brilliant visual and powerful moment in the film because it showed us the kind of destruction this version of Godzilla was capable of. And yeah, the shocking part is that he isn't even fully grown here. That's kind of why the whole city didn't disintegrate at this point. And thank God for that, otherwise the movie would have ended right there. The moment we were told that we were getting Godzilla Kong, we all knew that it was the giant monster tag team we needed. We did have to wait right until the end of the movie to get this iconic shot of all 4 monsters charging at each other, but considering how epic it looked, I'd say it was definitely worth the wait. Now, we did see these two teaming up in Godzilla vs. Kong and was shown earlier in the video too, but come on, this scene is far more visually appealing than taking down MechaGodzilla. Now, my main focus remains on the initial section where Godzilla and Kong reach Hollow Earth and have their round 1 against Shimo and Scar King because it's easily a larger-than-life moment. Yes, the part where Kong smashes down a frozen Scar King is also pretty cool, but it's not as much of a flex as compared to giving audiences worldwide a perfect money shot. Yeah, I'll admit that I was a little skeptical of Godzilla's sassy new look, but then I saw how powerful Bro got, so I'm glad he turned neon pink or purple or whatever the heck that colour was. It It may be predictable, but you really need an Oscar winner to trump Godzilla going Oppenheimer on all of us. King of the Monsters may have been the lowest grossing movie in the Monsterverse, which I don't understand at all, but it also gave us the ultimate flex when Godzilla went nuclear mode and made King Ghidorah look like a glorified flying lizard. The same monster who had everyone pissing their pants with a simple spark was now unable to even lay a scratch on Godzilla, and man, the aura that our boy was farming here took him to a whole other level. The dismissive manner in which he completely eliminated Ghidorah was peak cinema, and I don't think we've seen anything close in any monster movie till now. Like, come on, the foot on the chest was straight up disrespect. Even The Rock wouldn't violate you that bad during his WWE days.
Ding bang ding dong, he's Stone Cold Aye!
Even Ghidorah at one point realized that he was cooked, and the pun is very much intended here. It gets enhanced by the Titans bowing down to him, although that's already been covered earlier. But yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that Thermonuclear Godzilla is the undisputed MVP in the Monarchverse, as well as today's video. Hope you liked the video, please subscribe to the TV Regent, and here's another video that I know you're going to enjoy.